June 21, 217 BC, just before sunrise. How did an entire Roman army's greatest ambush? The Romans believed Hannibal was retreating. That assumption explains why they marched. They did not expect an immediate battle. But if Hannibal wasn't running away, where was he leading them?
The answer began days earlier. Hannibal deliberately moved through Roman territory, destroying farms and villages. He wanted Flaminius to follow him without hesitation.
The destruction achieved exactly what Hannibal expected.
Advance! Faster!
Instead of slowing down and gathering intelligence, the Roman commander increased the pace of the pursuit.
That decision gave Hannibal something every great commander wanted. He was no longer reacting to Rome's movements. Rome was reacting to his.
Looking across the landscape, Hannibal noticed something unusual. A narrow road ran between steep wooded hills and the lake. An army entering this passage would have very little room to maneuver. The terrain answered Hannibal's question. He didn't need to defeat the Romans in an open battle. He only needed them to enter this natural trap. But could he hide an entire army? The hills were covered with trees, broken ridges, and shallow valleys. They offered excellent concealment for thousands of soldiers if they remained silent until the right moment. Now the battlefield was chosen. But selecting the ground was only the first step. Hannibal still needed perfect timing. If the Romans detected the trap too early, the entire plan could fail. As dawn slowly approached, every Carthaginian soldier remained hidden. Below them, the Roman continued marching toward the narrow pass, completely unaware that the battle had already begun. Hannibal had chosen the perfect battlefield. Now he had to place every unit exactly where it would remain invisible. A single mistake could expose the entire ambush before it even began. He placed his strongest African and Iberian infantry behind the low hills overlooking the road. From there, they could strike directly into the Roman column at the perfect moment. Next came the Gauls. Hidden inside the forests, they waited where the Roman column would be simple: create panic the instant the attack began. Hannibal then positioned his cavalry near the southern exit of the valley. Their mission was not to begin the battle, but to prevent anyone from escaping once it started. Every part of the ambush had a single purpose. The Romans would be allowed to enter freely. Only after most of the army was inside would Hannibal close the trap. But even the best ambush could fail if it was discovered too early. Everything now depended on one unexpected ally: nature itself. The cool air above the lake created thick fog almost every morning. That natural cover hid entire hillsides from anyone marching along the shoreline below. The scouts reported nothing unusual. They could see the road ahead, but not the thousands of enemy soldiers waiting silently above them. With every step, more Roman soldiers entered the valley. The columns stretched for kilometers, making it impossible for the front and rear to support each other quickly. Now Hannibal had everything he wanted. The Romans were trapped inside the valley, divided by distance and completely unaware. Only one signal remained. The trap was finally complete. Nearly the entire Roman column had entered the valley. Hannibal looked across the fog-covered hills and gave the signal to attack. Roman soldiers froze in confusion. The attack came from the hills, the forests, and the rear at nearly the same time. Most had no idea where the enemy was.
Flaminius tried to understand what was happening, but the fog blocked his view, and the long Roman column prevented orders from reaching every unit.
Roman discipline depended on organized battle formations, but there was no time to form one. Units were attacked exactly where they had been marching. The narrow road made the situation even worse. The lake blocked movement on one side, while steep wooded hills blocked escape on the other. Now Hannibal's plan revealed its true purpose. He wasn't trying to push the Romans backward. He had removed every practical direction they could retreat. Some Roman officers attempted to rally nearby soldiers into defensive groups. They fought with determination, but isolated pockets could not coordinate across the battlefield. Visibility remained dangerously low. Many Roman soldiers could hear the battle more clearly than they could see it. Confusion became as deadly as enemy weapons. Meanwhile, Hannibal stayed on higher ground. From there, he could watch the battle unfold and direct fresh troops wherever Roman resistance remained strongest. Within minutes, the Roman army had lost its grating bravely, but they were no longer fighting together. Could anyone restore order before the trap completely closed? The Romans were still fighting, but they were no longer fighting as one army. Small groups resisted wherever they stood.
Form up on me now!
Consul Flaminius knew that unless Flaminius ordered nearby legionaries to regroup around their standards, but the fog swallowed his commands. Many soldiers never heard them, while others were already fighting for their lives. Hannibal expected exactly this. The Roman army depended on communication and discipline. By attacking everywhere at once, as visibility improved, the Romans finally saw the full scale of the trap. Carthaginian soldiers occupied every surrounding hill. There was no open ground left for an organized counterattack. Others turned toward the lake, hoping to escape the fighting. But the shoreline offered little safety. Armor, deep water, and confusion made escape almost impossible. Some Roman units tried to force their way uphill, but attacking steep slopes quickly exhausted them. Every advance ended in heavy resistance. Near the center of the battlefield, Flaminius continued fighting alongside his soldiers. He refused to abandon the army, even as the trap closed around him. Ancient historian Livy records that Flaminius was killed during the battle, ending Roman command at the very moment leadership was needed most. The army was now fighting without its commander. With Flaminius dead and communication broken, but one question still remained. Could any penny part of the Roman army escape the valley alive? Flaminius was dead, but the battle continued. Across the valley,
Circle!
without knowing who was still alive, their only hope now was to find a way out of the trap.
One Roman force, led by experienced officers, managed to break through the first line of Carthaginian attackers. For a brief moment, escape seemed possible, but those soldiers had no idea where they were going. Thick fog and unfamiliar terrain separated them from the rest of the Roman army. They had escaped.
Most Roman soldiers never reached the hills. Trapped between the lake and the surrounding slopes, they continued fighting until organized resistance finally collapsed. Ancient accounts describe scenes of complete confusion. Some soldiers attempted to swim across the lake while still wearing heavy armor. Few survived the effort. By late morning, the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Roman army had ceased to exist as an organized fighting force. Hannibal's ambush had succeeded beyond expectation.
Ancient historian Polybius reports that around 15,000 Roman soldiers were killed, while thousands more were captured. But the scale of the disaster is undisputed.
The Roman survivors who escaped into the hills believed they had avoided capture. They were wrong. Hannibal immediately sent cavalry to hunt them down.
The next day, approximately 6,000 Roman survivors surrendered after realizing no help was coming. Their escape had only delayed the inevitable. The answer was becoming clear. Hannibal had not simply won a battle through planning and perfect timing. But how would Rome respond to such a catastrophe?
The battle was over, but its consequences had only begun. Messengers raced toward Rome carrying news almost too devastating to believe. An entire Rome.
When the messenger reached Rome, panic spread through the city. Families searched for news of their loved ones, while senators struggled to understand the scale of the disaster.
According to the ancient historian Livy,
"We have been defeated in a great battle."
nothing more was needed. Rome understood the danger immediately. This was Rome's second major disaster in less than a year. Hannibal had already defeated Roman forces at the Trebia River. Now another army was gone.
Many Romans feared the next target would be the city itself. Hannibal had defeated 2 Roman armies. What could possibly stop him from marching directly toward Rome?
But Hannibal made a surprising decision. Instead of attacking Rome immediately, he continued moving through the Italian countryside. Historians still debate equipment needed to besiege the city.
Rome realized its usual strategy had failed. Chasing Hannibal into battle had only produced disaster. A completely different approach was now required.
The Republic appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator. His strategy would become famous for one reason: avoid major battles with Hannibal whenever possible.
Rather than seeking another decisive fight, Fabius planned to weaken Hannibal slowly. He would shadow the Carthaginian army, cut its supplies, and refuse the kind of battle Hannibal wanted. Lake Trasimene had changed the war. Hannibal's greatest ambush for Rome to abandon its traditional tactics and rethink how it would survive. But would this new strategy finally stop Hannibal? Rome had changed its strategy. Instead of chasing Hannibal into another trap, Fabius Maximus kept his army at a safe distance. But would avoiding battle?
Hannibal quickly understood Rome's new approach. The Romans were no longer seeking victory through one decisive battle. They were trying to exhaust his army instead.
To force Rome into action, Hannibal continued devastating the countryside. Farms, food supplies, and villages were destroyed, hoping but Fabius refused to be provoked. He watched from nearby hills, protecting his army, while avoiding the kind of open battle Hannibal wanted most. Many Romans hated this strategy. They believed avoiding battle looked weak and dishonorable. Soon, people began calling Fabius the delayer. Yet every day Hannibal remained in Italy. His army consumed food, lost horses, and marched farther from Carthaginian reinforcements. Time itself was becoming Rome's greatest weapon.
Hannibal searched constantly for another opportunity. He knew Rome could replace lost armies. If he wanted to win the war, he needed another decisive victory.
Meanwhile, political pressure inside Rome continued growing. Many leaders argued that caution had gone too far. They demanded a commander willing to confront Hannibal directly.
Eventually, Rome abandoned Fabius's cautious approach. New consuls raised one of the largest armies in Roman history, determined to crush Hannibal in a single battle. Hannibal had achieved exactly what he wanted. Rome was preparing for another decisive confrontation. The next battlefield would be Cannae.
After months of avoiding battle, Rome made a dramatic decision. Fabius Maximus was replaced, received orders to destroy Hannibal once and for all.
Rome began raising one of the largest armies in its history. Nearly 80,000 infantry and thousands of cavalry assembled. The Roman plan seemed simple: use overwhelming numbers to crush Hannibal in open battle. But Hannibal had already proven that numbers alone. Hannibal welcomed the news. A larger Roman army meant a greater opportunity. If he could control the battlefield again, Rome might suffer an even greater.
Instead of attacking first, Hannibal waited. Just as he had done at Lake Trasimene, he wanted Rome to choose the moment and believe it was in control.
This was Hannibal's greatest strength. He rarely forced battles. Instead, he encouraged his enemies to make decisions that benefited his own strategy. The Roman commanders believed overwhelming force would finally end the invasion. Confidence returned to the army, but confidence had also existed before Lake Trasimene. As both armies marched south, neither side knew they were approaching one of history's most studied battlefields. The plains near Cannae would soon decide the next chapter of the war. Everything that happened at Lake Trasimene had led to this moment. Rome wanted revenge. Hannibal wanted one final opportunity to break Roman military power forever. Lake Trasimene proved Hannibal could destroy a Roman army through surprise. Now the question was even greater. Could he? The battlefield had fallen silent, but Hannibal's work was not finished. Thousands of Roman prisoners stood before him. The way he treated them would shape the next stage of the war. According to the ancient historian Polybius, Hannibal separated the prisoners into two groups. Roman citizens remained captives, but many soldiers from Rome's Italian allies were released without ransom. This was no act of kindness. Hannibal hoped Rome's allies would begin questioning their loyalty. If enough cities changed sides, Rome could become isolated. It was another example of Hannibal's strategy. He understood that wars were won not only through battles, but through politics, alliances, and public opinion. Yet Hannibal faced a problem of his own. Every victory moved his army farther from Carthage. Replacing soldiers, horses, and equipment became increasingly difficult. Unlike Rome, Hannibal could not easily replace his losses. Every experienced veteran was valuable. Every casualty weakened the army that had crossed the Alps.
Meanwhile, Roman survivors carried terrifying stories back to nearby towns. Across Italy, people realized that Hannibal was unlike any enemy Rome had ever faced.
Ancient commanders had used ambushes before, but few had destroyed an entire army on this scale. That is why Lake Trasimene remains one of history's greatest military surprises. Modern military historians continue studying this battle because its principles remain timeless. Intelligence, terrain, deception, and timing often matter more than numerical strength. The answer to our question was finally becoming complete. Hannibal did not win because he had the larger army. He won because he controlled where, when, and how the battle would be fought. The battle ended in 217 BC, but its lessons never disappeared. More than 2,000 size, but because of its flawless execution. The Roman army wasn't defeated because its soldiers lacked courage. They fought with discipline until the very end. What they lost was the ability to fight together as a single force. Military historians often point to 4 reasons for Hannibal's success: deception, intelligence, terrain, and timing. Remove any one of them and the ambush becomes far less effective.
Perhaps Hannibal's greatest achievement was psychological. Before a sword was drawn, he had already convinced Flaminius to fight exactly where Hannibal wanted.
Ancient historian Polybius believed that successful generals understood both the battlefield and their opponent's camp. Hannibal mastered both, turning Roman confidence into his greatest weapon.
Lake Trasimene also proved that leadership extends beyond combat. Every decision Hannibal made before the battle determined what happened.
Even today, military planners study this campaign to understand how surprise can overcome superior numbers. Technology has changed, but human decision-making has not.
Lake Trasimene reminds us that history is often decided long before armies meet. Preparation, patience, and understanding the enemy can...
The answer was now almost complete. Hannibal did not create history through luck. He created it through planning so precise. As the fighting ended, Lake Trasimene became more than a battlefield. It became proof that a perfectly planned ambush could defeat one of the world's strongest military powers. For Rome, the defeat was devastating. Yet the Republic survived because it adapted. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, Roman leaders changed how they fought the war.
For Hannibal, Trasimene was one of his greatest victories. But even this extraordinary success could not end the war. Rome still possessed enormous resources and unmatched determination.
History often remembers great battles because of the number of soldiers involved. Lake Trasimene is remembered for something different: the perfection of its execution. Every stage of Hannibal's plan supported the next. He provoked the pursuit, selected the terrain, concealed his army, waited patiently, and that is why modern historians rarely describe Trasimene as a lucky victory. It was a carefully designed military operation, executed almost exactly as its commander intended. More than 22 centuries later, travelers still stand beside Lake Trasimene. The hills remain unchanged, silently revealing why Hannibal chose this place. The landscape itself tells the story. The narrow road, the surrounding hills, and the lake created a battlefield where surprise became more powerful than numbers.
So how did Hannibal destroy an entire Roman army before it could even form for battle? The answer was never one brilliant moment. It was hundreds of correct decisions.
Lake Trasimene remains one of history's greatest military ambushes because it proved a timeless truth and strolls at exactly the right moment.